to Sound and Fury book reviews. As usual, I'm Tina. Apparently it's hashtag Indie April on Twitter, on other places, I don't know. I don't know who makes this stuff up, I don't know anything about hashtags, but I figured because of Indie April, I would list off my top self-published novels to show that it's a valid way to publish books. These are, you know, a mix of genres, though there's a lot of sci-fi. There's actually 11 and not 10. I can't count, apparently. I'm not going to tell you what I gave them. I'm just going to talk about what the books are and what I liked about them. And it's going to be pretty quick. It's not going to be a huge review of either of them. I have reviewed some of these on my channel before and my written reviews, but I'm not going to put links or anything. So the first one I'm going to talk about is The Jealousy of Jalice by Jessie Bailey. This is a dark fantasy following the kidnapped wife of a corrupt ruler, her kidnapper, and the spy that's taking the wife's place. All three women have intriguing plot lines and well-developed personalities. The villains in the story are fantastically creepy and quite unique. There is a really interesting kind of Venom-like aspect to one of them that was really well done. I did want a bit more exposition into the setting and how the society functioned, but you know, aside from that, I was entirely drawn into the two main storylines as well as in liking the minor characters. It's such a really, really interesting book. If you like dark fantasy, dark sci-fi with horror elements, this is right up your alley. It's absolutely fantastic. It's part of a series, and I really can't wait to get to the second one. I don't think the second one's out yet, though. Really good. The cover's really cool, too. So, Up to the Throne by T.A. Frost is another one I highly recommend. The novel follows a character named Julia on her revenge quest so she's trying to find a man that scarred her and tried to kill her a few years ago. The setting is really cool. It's like a Renaissance-like Italian-based world, but with magic and magical characters. That aspect, though, is kind of a minor part of the story until later on, which is kind of nice. The story actually focuses more on Julia and a side plot about political intrigue more than the kind of magical aspect. The main antagonist isn't the most interesting villain, unfortunately, but Julia's plot makes up for all of that. It's a really engaging story with really fun characters, and, you know, the second part is on my TBR. I keep meaning to get to it. So, as I was editing my video, I realized that I completely forgot to talk about one of my favorite self-published books, and that is Space Captain Smith, also by Toby Frost. It is hilarious. I've talked about this before on my channel, but if you're new to my channel, this book, this is a series. I actually have all of them. I've only read 4 of them because I'm trying to kind of delay the experience because I enjoy them so much. So it is a comedy space opera. It's really funny and really smart and has really fun action scenes and some just great humor. I really recommend it to people that like British humor and you know, allusions to other sci-fi texts, things like that. It's really fun, and I can't believe that I completely forgot it because it's like right there on my shelf. I'm pretty sure they're in my video itself. Anyway, sorry about that. The next one is Augury by S.E. Lister. This novel blew me away. This novel is fantastic. It's under the genre of fantasy, but it reads more like a historical fiction of ancient Greece. And it's about a city that's at war within itself. It's all these different factions in the city are just reaching this boiling point where it's leading up to a massive conflict, and there's all this tension that runs through the novel, and there's like this temple of priestesses who are falling out of favor with the public. There's new religion that's trying to take control, and they're doing so using very kind of like undercutting ways. And then there's the emperor himself who's corrupt, and the story mainly follows of the emperor's brother who should have been the emperor, and it kind of follows his life with his family as well as the priestesses and how they are all kind of tied together. The characters are compelling to the point where I was worried about all of them during the climax. And it's also great because there's a lot of diversity. There's lots of female characters who are well-rounded. There's people of color as a main character in a setting that usually doesn't get that. And the novel builds to this really, really impressive kind of tension that keeps you on the edge of your seat. The last third of the novel is just like nail-biting. It's so good. I really recommend it to people that... It's not really a fantasy, it's more of a historical fiction. I don't know, it's hard to describe. It's one of those like genre blending books, but it's really, really good. Callisto 2.0 by Susan English. So I'm not a huge fan of women's fiction, but given this was a sci-fi women's fiction, I gave it a shot and I really enjoyed it. Susan's novel is so good. It's set in the near future and it follows this woman named Callisto, who's a scientist who's recruited to work on this futuristic space station. So the space station is like very technologically advanced, but it's also interesting because it employs only women identifying people. It's almost like a kind of like a utopian experiment. This is a great place for Callisto to work and live because she's a lesbian and she's a little bit lovelorn. She's been lonely for a while, and so the story does focus on that a bit. I guess that's the women's fiction side of it. I like my sci-fi with a bit more pew pew pew, but Susan is a great writer, and the space station and the science behind it are based on real science. I think Susan's actually a physicist. So if you like women's fiction or sci-fi without aliens and action, you'll really love this. Like it's very good, and the ending really builds for a really great sequel, and I really hope that Susan, publishes that too, because I want to know what happens. Fog Coast Runaway by Linda B. Myers is the next one. So this is set in Oregon in the late 1800s. The story is kind of a traditional Bildungsroman style narrative of a woman's life as a runaway teenager to an elderly woman. Generally not my type of novel. This is like something I'd recommend to like my mother-in-law. But this book is actually quite enchanting. It touches on issues that are still relevant today, such as contraception and pregnancy and double standards. And while there are many good men in the novel, the story is really about the bond between women. It's a story about, family and resilience and changing times, and it really is, it's got some really sad, poignant moments too. It was really well done. It actually took me by surprise, and I really enjoyed it. Breach of Peace by Daniel B. Green. I just posted a video about this last week. I've included, you can check that out if you want. I think, though, I talk a lot more about literary criticism and the whole controversy than anything else, but I really enjoyed Green's novella. I didn't give it 5 stars because I found that I wanted more, and I think the setting wasn't fleshed out enough for me, but I really liked the characters. I think he's great at action scenes, and I really liked the premise. So if you want to jump on the Breach of Peace train, I recommend it. It's a good little novella. The Agonizing Death of Waltham Pinschip by Axel Erzin-Kleoglu. I hope I'm saying that properly. I'm sorry if I didn't. As everyone knows who watches my channel, I can't pronounce anything. This book is a lot of fun. It's set in BC, Canada, and we follow a couple of days in the lives of a few kind of odd characters. There's a detective, there's a boy trapped in a dream, there's an alien running a diner, and 2 wayward hit people. Their stories work in a kind of pulp fiction way, where all the plots seem separate, but they're connected via these like kind of thin threads that slowly get more and more woven together as the story goes along. Axel is a really funny guy. He has a really cool podcast called So Long and Thanks for All the Books. And this humor definitely comes out in the novel too. The novel's like this zany puzzle, and it's a really fun, it's a joy to read. It's kind of reminiscent of like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy kind of thing, and I definitely recommend it. He has a bunch of free, I think, little short stories on Amazon right now too. I haven't read any of them because I have so many things to read, but they're definitely on my list. Suzie Spitfire Kills Everybody. And Suzie Spitfire and the Snake Eyes of Venus by Joe Canzano is the next one I'm going to talk about. A 2 for 1 here. I'm not sure how I stumbled across Suzie Spitfire initially, but the book is a lot of fun. Suzie is a kind of outlaw in the near future and on the hunt for this AI brain her dead father created. In the second book, she's dealing with a revolution on Venus as well as hunting an assassin. She has to deal with all manner of bad guys and bad girls in her adventures. But the stories aren't just pulp, they definitely are pulp. Like it's clearly got a pulp basis to it, but there's some really poignant exploration into the nature of domestic abuse in one of them, and the bad guys are never like cliche villains. It's a really fun couple of books, and especially if you like violence. It's good. I really liked it. Suzie is a really fun character. The Brightest Fell by Nupur Chowdhury. I don't read a lot of political thrillers, or even thrillers really, but this one had a speculative bent to it, alternative reality kind of aspect that I was intrigued by, and the story is really engrossing and very intriguing. The main character has created a drug that takes away the proclivity for violence, but it also robs the user of their free will. So obviously a lot of people want this. The desire to control this weapon, you know, causes corruption and political upheaval, leaving these two other main characters unsure who to trust and all this stuff. It's a really good political thriller kind of set in like a near future that I wasn't sure if it was set in like a real country, like based on a real country, or if it was entirely fictional. And I think that's what makes it really interesting, that it feels like it could be a different country when it's probably not. And the last one I'm going to talk about is A Touch of Death by Rebecca Crunden. This is the first in the pentology, so 5. It's this sprawling yet deftly contained story about two young people on the run in a post-apocalyptic dystopia. It's an elegant, slow burn novel that really takes its time and to really immerse you in the world. I'll admit it took me a bit to get into it, and I didn't really like one of the main characters, but you know, once I was in, I was hooked. And I think about this novel sometimes. I'm always like, oh, I gotta go back and read the rest of them. I think the reason I dislike the one main character is because he's so well written. Like, she does a really good job in building out his personality. I just couldn't stand him. But the other main character is fantastic. The rest of the books are definitely on my TBR, and I really recommend this one if you'd like kind of far future dystopia after a collapse. The first chapter is amazing. The first chapter is so good. And so is the rest of it, but the first chapter really, really hooks you. Anyway, those are my, you know, top self-published books at the moment. I'm reading, you know, a whole bunch of them this year, so hopefully I'll be able to update this. Maybe I'll do this every April. I'll talk about my favorite ones, see if any of these get bumped off the list, or maybe I'll just talk about, you know, new ones that I read that I really liked. Anyway, if you're one of those people that says you don't read self-published novels, I highly recommend you pick up one of these and give it a shot, because they are fantastic. And I hope the authors don't mind that I tagged them in my Twitter post about this. But I don't know, I would want someone to I would want to know if someone talked about my book in some kind of a review. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you.